Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Daredevil number 184. And this book, excellent. Very excellent read. Lots of stakes, drama, suspense, and very well paced. Want to give a shout out to my buddy Isaac for hooking me up with this, so thank you, bro. This was an excellent read. So let's go ahead and jump into No More Mr. Nice Guy. The print date on this book was July 1982. So it's been a while since this book's out, and we're introduced to this character named Hogman, and what he is he's on he's on trial for a murder rap, and you find out that Matt Murdock is his lawyer. So he's talking about how he's the luckiest son of a gun, and how Murdock's going to get him off of this trial. And while he's talking and being arrogant, I like how we segue from him in the restaurant to the scope of a sniper rifle. And here we see the Punisher getting ready to take this character out. And before he can do anything, I love the action lines here that you see where he flips his head, because you hear psst. And then we open up to boom. Good guys wear red. And this book was written by Frank Miller, penciled by Frank Miller, inks Klaus Janson, colors Klaus Janson, and letters Joe Rosen. So right there off the bat, and then of course it says Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief. So an all-star cast on this book. And I love how they work, how the action of him flipping, landing, and tackling into the Punisher to take out, before he can take out Hogman. And just the pacing of how they fight, the use of silhouettes, how the Punisher tries to shoot down this part of this, what is that thing called? That chimney stack. Smashes on him, and he gets away. And that's just in the span of 2 pages with one top splash page here. Just absolutely gorgeous work. Very dynamic pages. Nothing feels flat. I like how there's the Punisher, and then he's gone, and Daredevil's like, ugh. Well, I was able to save Hogman for the moment. And he says here, this is what kind of is the important beat of the whole story. He says, okay, so Hogman isn't the classiest client I've ever defended in court. But his heartbeat didn't jump when he told me he was innocent, which means he told the truth. I hope. So I like how they get on a close-up and he's thinking about it. And they kind of have that illuminated red and yellow, so he's kind of in reflection of, oh boy, am I doing the right thing? And did I actually do the right thing of stopping the Punisher? And of course, your mandatory ads. And here, this feels a lot like build-up, but it actually helps with the pacing of the book. We see Heather in this character here. I don't remember what his name is off the top of my head, but he's kind of, you see that he's pushing her to sign this paperwork. So again, this was kind of very Claremont-esque in a way, where instead of saying, meanwhile, elsewhere, it just says, the Manhattan office of Glen Industries. And so it kind of just gives you a moment. And then we get into the court. And I like how we kind of see Matt talking to the jury, and it just gets closer on his face as he's talking about how this Hogman is innocent. And a lot of this revolves around drugs as well. That's kind of another topic. So it kind of, in a way, feels like an afternoon special, but it works. Because we see this kid here, he goes, Coach Donahue, what's wrong? Nothing, Billy, nothing at all. And you kind of see this nervous expression on his face, because Matt's saying, within the next 24 hours, I will receive evidence that the true killer is a man who masquerades as a solid, respectable citizen and uses his position to administer narcotics to young children. So very much a sign of the times, because this was kind of getting to be a heavy thing back in the day. And it still is, but the 80s, everything was really kind of pushing on it. And here Matt is waiting for his call, which you learn why he said what he said in court. There's these moments with the woman that he's with named Heather, and it's just very detective noir. Now, this is what I like about Frank Miller's Daredevil, and why I've been enjoying Zdarsky's. The same thing with, oh God, who was before Chip Zdarsky? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Let me know down in the comments, because I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but his run was good too. And see, when Daredevil's written right, and you kind of get more of a detective noir feeling, he works. And I've read a lot of good Daredevil in that aspect, but I've also read a lot of boring Daredevil where they just kind of didn't understand the character. And here it's not only just what Miller is writing, but what he draws and what Janson adds in terms of color and shadows that creates that mood, or how they use the telephone wire here, and it just helps build and makes the story work all around. So there's something you find out with that Coach Donahue that we saw a moment ago. I don't want to give it away. And then we find out something that happens with Hogman and how he's working to try to eliminate anybody who can finger him in court. So you just hear again the long shadows, the use of just the yellows, and you can actually see the type of person Hogman is. You know, there's no flattering lighting about him. Each time you see him, he has this very ugly, stark look about him, which adds to the narrative. You know, again, show don't tell. That art really pushes the story. Now Hogman gets off from the murder rap, and here something's revealed that I really don't want to give away, because it really kind of gives the impact of the story. But the little boy whose sister OD'd on drugs, which kind of pushed this whole thing, and I'm assuming it's from the last issue, he's had enough, because Matt's trying to tell him that, you know, there's laws that mostly work and we have to abide by them and do our best as individuals, but sometimes they don't work. Well, here's a child who's kind of on his last wit because he's lost his sister, takes his dad's gun. And I love the paneling here where we see where everything's starting to kind of come to a crescendo here at the end with Hogman, this little boy's father, showing how his gun was taken. And then in the midst of all that, we just see this little boy draped in shadows, all alone and ready to do something, you know, to take, take the law into his own hands, as in a sense Daredevil does. And then we get another moment with the Punisher, which again kind of shows the what do you call it, the contrast differences between the characters. And Daredevil does something here that you never thought that he would do at the time. And again, we see the hurt in this child's face. He goes, "We'll get him for killing Marky and poisoning Coach Donahue. I promise, Billy." And again, you can just see this hopelessness in this child's face, just living in the hard streets of New York, and just is tired of everything that is happening. This book for me, and mostly what Frank Miller writes, just really hits on those human emotions and kind of the dark underbelly tones of what happens in reality. You know, he's done that with Daredevil, did that with Batman and Sin City. Yeah, it's not pretty, but it makes for a very great, dramatic story, which adds to the beats, adds to the gorgeous artwork. And that's why a lot of Frank Miller's older stuff, it's timeless and classic, and why it's still talked about, and why a majority of his work is reprinted, because it hits that human emotion. So Daredevil 184. I know I didn't give it I tried to go into it as much as I could, but I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to go get this book and read it, because the Frank Miller era and the Ann Nocenti era of Daredevil, phenomenal. And surprisingly, the modern, as I said earlier, the Chip Zdarsky run has been very excellent as well. So if you've been looking for a new Daredevil to read, I highly suggest his run. But to kind of go back and see where this kind of all began and where Daredevil started getting a little more dark, this would be a good issue to jump on, guys. So if you've enjoyed this issue, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if they have a copy in stock. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little Daredevil bell next to subscribe, we really appreciate it. That way you guys will get notified and you can come to the channel. And we love talking and just hearing your feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.